Hey guys, so here's a thought for you. 11 years ago, August 3rd, 4th, the Yazidi genocide began. And it was probably about January of that year, would have been 2014, January 2014-ish. We had sent a team over to northern Iraq for the Syrian refugee situation, and it was one of those situations I wasn't wanting to go. For 2 years the Syrian genocide was unfolding. People were texting asking me, hey, is Cry going? And I kind of was like, yeah, I'm praying about it, but I had known that aid workers were disappearing and it wasn't something I was really running towards. I remember we were based in Kona, Hawaii at the time. We had a morning prayer meeting, and during that morning prayer meeting, we decided to pray for 1 million child IDPs, which meant, if a child is, internally displaced, then, you have parents as well. So the number's much, much bigger. We were praying, and I looked around, and our staff, maybe there's 5, 6, 7 of us, and all of a sudden I hear sniffles and tears, and I realized the whole team is crying. And I said, oh no, this isn't good. This is not good. And somebody walked over and they said, hey, what are you guys praying for? I said, oh, well, we're praying for the Syrian genocide. And they said, oh man, you need to come to the prayer room and lead a campus-wide prayer meeting for this. We need to pray about this right now. And I was like, oh no, this is not good. I'm just being honest. I didn't want to go to the Syrian refugee crisis. I knew that, just costly, messy, challenging deployment. We all have those places where, in our heart, where we're like, yeah, this far, God, but not that far. We love to say, Jesus is Lord, but is he really? What are our comfort zones? What are our boundaries? We're doing the math on that. We ended up leading that campus-wide prayer meeting. About 2 days later, I get a phone call out of the blue from a doctor that I had met maybe 6 months prior. And he's just talking, and he mentions the nation Kurdistan. And I'm like, Kurdistan, wait a minute, why does that sound familiar? Why can't I place it on a map? And he goes, well, it's actually the largest persecuted people group of modern times, and they don't have a country of their own. You're not going to find it on a map. There's a region in Iran, in Turkey, and in northern Iraq, mostly. And he goes, I go, wow, I can't believe, you're talking about this right now, because we were just praying for the Syrian refugees yesterday. He goes, well, I'm friends with the general of the Kurdish forces, and that's where all of the Syrian refugees are going right now. They're going to Kurdistan. If, Cry wants to send a team, I can get you on the phone with them right now. And I was like, oh my goodness, this really isn't good. And that's kind of how that situation unfolded. Make a long story short, we ended up on the phone with him. We got an invitation to come over and run medical clinics. And we took, at the time, I got my YWAM hat on today. At the time, we were based in Kona, Hawaii with YWAM and doing stuff with them. And we were doing a crisis response DTS. We took team of YWAMers and a team of Cry responders and paramedics and nurses and medical personnel, and we went over and we did medical clinics. This was that January. I think it was 2014, 2013. I can't remember exactly. Don't know if I have the date quite correct, but ISIS wasn't on the scene yet. That wasn't a word anybody was hearing. So we took a team over there, and we go over and we're running medical clinics. We're seeing 600 patients a day. It was amazing. And then we were going to go over and we're going to go see Nahum's tomb over the Kurdish border into Iraq proper. And make a long story short, we ended up not going. And that day that we were going to go, Fallujah had fallen to this terrorist group called ISIS. And that was the first time I heard that name, ISIS. We were there on the ground in northern Iraq, and that day, you could see, fires burning in the distance, and people were flooding the borders. And that was an unfolding situation. And two of our teammates, Jordan and Jessica Danchik, they were leading some of our schools at the time. We had come back from that trip, and they wanted to go back over and follow up on relationships. It might have been maybe 6 weeks after that initial trip. Their hearts were just really stirred for the country. And so they go back over, and the whole thing just boils over. And that's when the refugee crisis really beginning to unfold. You know, I was getting the text messages, 10,000 refugees showed up last night, 20,000, 100,000 came, another 100,000 came to Erbil, and we started sending team after team after wave after wave. And it turned into our largest international deployment. And it was pretty wild. You know, then at one point we started hearing of the Yazidi people, and the Yazidis, ancient people group over there, have a real mixed bag of religion, very different. Their home territory was Mount Sinjar, and they were surrounded on all sides by ISIS. And ISIS, what they were doing is they were coming in and they were, you know, stealing the women, the children, executing the men. You guys remember this was happening, you know, on primetime television, cutting people's heads off, and it was terrible, brutal, just brutal, the brutality that came out of those days. But so the whole ISIS crisis unfolds. You know, Jessica ends up getting helicoptered in up on top of Mount Sinjar, first relief group in there. You know, we began to hear the stories about what was the plight of the Yazidis, what was happening to these women. They were jumping off the side of the mountain, committing suicide because they were pregnant. They were impregnated by ISIS fighters. And so because of their religion, because of their culture, shame-based culture, they're ostracized. They had no hope of having a husband, you know, or any future. And so they were committing suicide. That's one of the things we learned that day up on top of the mountain. And shortly after that, ISIS, you know, had encroached Erbil, and because we didn't leave, bought a lot of credibility with the Kurdish government, with the Iraqi government. That's what ended up giving us the leverage to be able to get the helicopter ride into Mount Sinjar. And Jordan and Jessica's great faith and boldness. Yeah, and then it turned into not only this major relief operation, but then we got into doing all sorts of things with these traumatized women and these girls, and young girls. We ran a safe house. We had many amazing cry responder women who ended up running that safe home. Real challenging. You know, the warfare, the spiritual warfare that came along with that ground was really difficult to navigate. You know, what we were trying to do was not easy. We were definitely in over our heads, but we were just trying to help. You know, everybody did their best, and a lot of challenges though with that. And then we got into doing a bunch of rescues as well, and something like 285 women came through the safe house, and then were partnered with about 86 or 85 rescue of women and children, meaning we funded their extraction. We were working with smugglers and things along those lines of getting people out from behind ISIS lines. Some of these girls young, 14, 13, 12, even younger than that, quote unquote married to ISIS fighters. Just so terrible and brutal. But anyway, somebody texted that to me 11 years ago, and I'm just remembering, you know, maybe some of you responders were there on that deployment. Some people on that deployment are still over in northern Iraq, in Kurdistan, serving with other organizations, amazing organizations. Some of them started their own organization. Jordan and Jessica, they're still there on the ground serving. They started Whole Heart International and serving refugee kids, a refugee population, sharing the gospel, sharing the love of God. Amazing fruit. Hard deployment. You know, we don't know when the next one is. We don't know when the next big, hard deployment's coming. But, you know, we can only do this because people say yes and are willing to go to the hard, dark places. It's amazing what God can do even with a reluctant yes. My yes was reluctant in the beginning with that whole thing. The way I slowly got drawn into it and finally said yes. And I just want to encourage you, you know, where's that reserve for you? Where's that comfort zone? Where's that no in your heart? If you say that Jesus is Lord in your life, is he really Lord? Meaning, does he actually have full occupation of your heart, your life, your will, your finances, your time, your energy? And there is nothing like living fully surrendered to Jesus 100% of the time, radical obedience. It'll be the greatest adventure you ever went on. What's the worst is naming the name of Jesus, but living half-baked, 1 foot in, living a comfort style of Christianity. Jesus told us that every day we get to pick up our cross. We get to die daily. Jesus was not only the way to the Father, but he was and is a paradigm for the way that we should live. He is the way, the truth, and the life. He's not just an escape ticket from hell. He's the way. He's the model. He's the truth. He's the truth that we're to live. He's the life that we're to live. And we're to live our lives sacrificially for the sake of fulfilling the Great Commission. Anyway, guys, love you guys. Appreciate you. And ready for the next adventure with all of you. God bless.